Good idea to go live before you're dead, don't you think? So I'm sitting here in a family's house, family member's house, and I'm going to rattle off the last, well, actually not the last, but from 1951 to, let's say, 8 years ago, when things got interesting again. Uh, my mom and dad were both born in northern Pennsylvania, although many miles apart. They didn't know each other as children. My mother came from a Pennsylvania Appalachian coal mining family. And my dad came from a small town, 6 or 7 brothers and sisters, single mom, operating a switchboard in their house. Switchboard is a telephone operator. In the old days, you couldn't dial somebody direct. You called the operator in the town, and she plugged the wire you were on into the wire that was connected to the person's house or a group of people's house if it was a party line. And it would ring, I think, at all the houses, and then everybody'd pick up and find out who somebody wanted to talk to, and then they'd talk. I'm not sure if anybody stayed on the line to eavesdrop. I think that's where eavesdropping got invented. But anyways, I never really knew my mother's family as well as I knew my father's family. Uh, my mom had a number of brothers and sisters. I more recently have connected with one of my cousins who I do remember very well from when we were kids, but we didn't visit there very often. Um, I just think back then, the man of the family, my dad, um, made the decision as to where we went and what we did. I'll be honest with you, I really think that my mom's family was more fun and more pleasant and maybe in the long run more interesting than my dad's family. Although I became very close with my cousin Roger, who was 2 years older than me, and my two girl twin cousins who were my age. Um, they lived on the dairy farm. My uncle worked in a collision shop as well as ran his dairy farm with, I don't know, I think about 30 cows. I'm not really sure. It was a couple hundred acres farm, and it was really cool. And I used to go there during the summers and cause a lot of problems and be wild and get hurt and stay for a couple of weeks while the girls would come up and stay with my little sister, who's 2 years younger than me. So they were 2 years older than her, up in Buffalo, New York. And they lived in north central Pennsylvania, right where my father grew up. I mean, a few miles away. So, anyway, it was very interesting to um, take a look at their lifestyle as opposed to my lifestyle. And when we would go and visit the girls, like our family would go down and visit their family and stay in their house and um, hang out, all of us, for like holidays, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. Um, didn't do the Christmas traveling too often because the roads to get down there were not major highways. And Buffalo, as you well know, sometimes if you leave it, you ain't coming back for a while in those days because the roads could get pretty bad, and they still do, but there was less equipment to clean them. So, but mainly spring, summer, fall, we go down there and hang out. And my cousins went to a one-room schoolhouse. In other words, all the kids from very young age to, I think, 8th or 9th grade, all went to school in the same building. I think shared classrooms. I know the building wasn't real big. I'm not sure how they divided it up, but the one thing my aunt always told us is that when cousin David, that's me, was visiting, the next week after I left, the teacher knew that cousin David had visited because the girls, not my cousin who was 2 years older than me, we were close, but the girls were wild on the playground and everywhere. My influence, I guess. But at any rate, that was, I mean, when I was a real little kid, I was born in a little village outside of um, Rochester, New York, called Marion, New York. And my father was an assistant principal at that school. And my mother was a full time mom to me and my little sister. I was born in a one room farmhouse. I was born in a room they rented from a family that owned a farmhouse and a small farm. And then my sister was born in a what's called a duplex, where there's a family on each side of the house. It's divided, and we were really good friends with the people next door to us, and had a lot of fun times. And my dad and mom were real good friends with both of the adults from the family, and the family had like 3 kids. So my little sister and I mixed really well with them. But when I was 4 years old, my dad got a job as the principal of a brand new school in Williamsville, New York, which is a suburb of Buffalo. And we embarked on an adventure. We moved up there, moved into a house, stayed there for about a year, and we moved into another duplex, which was a single story brick building, brick home, with 2 apartments in it, one on each side, and lived there for a couple of years. And then we moved into another house, and that house we moved into when I was in third grade. And that house allowed me to be in my dad's school district. So I could go to his elementary school. And my sister was in first grade. Yeah, she was 2 years behind me. And she went to my dad's school when she was in first grade. At which time my mom started teaching at a private school called the Park School in Snyder, which is the suburb next door to Williamsville in Buffalo. And it was a pretty good life. I was a shy kid, but I was full of energy. I was pretty athletic, and I kind of, when I was in the neighborhood from the time I was kindergarten till second grade, my main thing was flipping baseball cards. There were a lot of older kids in the neighborhood, but I was a really skilled baseball card gambler, and accumulated 20 shopping bags, grocery bags, full of baseball cards. When we moved from that house, we moved those all to the next house. Um, I'm sure there's a lot of valuable cards in there. I remember, Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra, and even some older cards like I'd flip that would have some earlier ones. There was a million Eddie Fishers. God only knows what Eddie Fisher's claim to fame was, but I accumulated a massive quantity of Eddie Fisher cards. You could probably put them on a scale and weigh them, the amount of Eddie Fisher cards I had. But at any rate, when we moved to our next location, um, my mother threw my 20 bags of baseball cards in the trash. I think she did it when we were moving. Um, the other interesting thing, probably at that house, is that we walked, or I walked, because my sister was still before school age, um, about, thinking about a mile and a half to school, and crossed a major highway, and there were crossing guards. Um, and the nice thing was I went to school a little early because the older kids played kickball on the tennis courts. And apparently I was a good enough athlete. They let me play when I was in first and second grade with, the third and fourth and fifth graders. And I think I held my own. But it was a whole new world when I moved to my dad's school. We'd go into school with him in the morning early, and then we had a babysitter that would come in a cab to the school and pick up my sister and me and take us home. And then my folks would get there a couple hours later. They'd have afternoon meetings. My mom by this time was teaching at the private school, and she was teaching like second grade. Even though she had a master's in education and had been a principal at one time, she just wanted to devote time to her family. Um, it was neat because I remember mom used to have a meeting at her school every Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, dad would take my little sister and me out for chicken dinner at, I can't remember, some restaurant, or hamburgers at Carol's restaurant. I remember Carol's restaurant. And then we'd go to the bowling alleys, the little neighborhood bowling alleys, and we'd bowl for a couple of hours till we went and picked up my mom. And it was a lot of fun. In the winter, sometimes my dad would take us out tobogganing at my mom's school, which had a hill and a pond and a pool, and it was kind of a nice area. And so we go tobogganing and then pick my mom up after a meeting because we were just outside the door of where the meeting was being held between the teachers and the administration of the private school. So that was pretty nice. And it ended up that when I was entering sixth grade, we moved into the neighborhood where my mom's school was located, and my parents bought their first house and their last house. It's the only house they ever owned. They had it from the time I was going into sixth grade until my mom passed away when they were living in that house, and my dad moved back to his hometown and sold that house when it just became too much, and my sister had moved on and I'd moved on in life. So it was interesting. It was nice. It was pleasant. I grew up in basically that house. That was my hometown and my childhood house. And most of my memories were there. And I went to sixth grade, and then I went to junior high school, and I went to high school, and moved out and started a life on my own, although I used to come back and have my laundry done. But I think that's a good place to wrap this part up. And with my next one, I'll get into talking about my life from the time I was in sixth grade till I graduated high school. Thanks for your interest. Have a great one.